Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with a very special review because this is something I've been waiting on since late October. Well, technically late November is when I was supposed to get this, but through a number of different things and reasons, it finally came this week. A good friend of mine came through for me, got himself a bundle and myself one, and I finally got to watch In Search of Darkness, the 4.5-hour documentary on 80s horror. Now, of course, this was made all through donations on Indiegogo and or Kickstarter. I know at least Indiegogo. And I think it was like the last week of October, I was watching a video on Cinemassacre, and James Rolfe did an advertisement for it, and he said, Midnight Halloween is the last chance to order this, and there was a trailer, said how long it was, what kind of stuff was going to be on it, and that was it. If you didn't order it, you ain't getting it, apparently. And I was freaking out. I was like, I can't let this documentary go. There's no fucking way I can let this go. And yeah, as far as I know, there's no like legit real release of it. Only to backers on the site. And the bundle that it came with is obviously the Blu-ray. Came with the really thick, nice pin of the kid on the cover, which I bring a backpack to work, so that's awesome. A postcard of the alternate cover, which I always liked this more, but after looking at it, I think I like this cover more, which is good because it also came with a beautiful other poster of the actual cover, and I think that's just beautiful. I love that cover, because that was me as a kid, sitting as close to the TV as I could, just filling my brain with horror. And so a little bit more about the documentary. Well, actually, so they advertised it as get it by late November, early December. Well, actually, I put a post on Facebook, like, does anybody know how I can do this so I can get it? I was freaking out. And a good friend of mine commented, he was like, dude, I'm going to get myself one. Do you want one? And I was like, fucking yes, please. So he's been talking me through it, and they said late November, early December, in time for the holidays. And I'm guessing there was just so many orders that they were kind of overwhelmed. They had to do more. And then if you look at other videos of people that got them a while ago, there was some controversy over the quality of packaging, quality of video, the disc itself. There was a bundle where you could get a big poster of this, either by itself or signed by Robert Englund or Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs would have been awesome. And, they weren't sending it in like a thing like this or like a cardboard tube like this one did. They were folding it face out, so it was having creases and rips, and people were pissed. So I believe there was a recall or a wait so they could, right some wrongs. But it finally came in this week, and I met up with my friend today and got it, and I think it's flawless. I'm very happy with everything. Well worth the wait. And I guess they had a certain amount that they wanted to do, and if so much money was donated from backers, that they could have more and more, they could get more people, they could have more topics, talk about more things, and they reached their goal. They did everything they wanted to do, I'm guessing. It starts in 1980, and it shows like a wall of posters, and it kind of zooms into the one in the middle. That's the one they talk about for a short period. And obviously, the bigger the film, the more time they spend on it, and the more people talk about it. And it just goes by year, 80 to 89. And every couple years, there's another topic that they'll go into. Like, this one kind of had me choked up with nostalgia, talking about the age of the video stores and just what it was like for people before the internet to just go into a video store and just be in a world of just, rent anything. That's how kids were exposed to horror. And I remember going to the video stores when they were VHS. That was a huge part of my childhood. Or, there was a topic on, final girls, good villains, badass male heroes, scores and soundtracks, a bunch of different things. The score itself for this is very 80s, perfect tribute. And it's kind of hard to talk about documentaries because you're pretty much just going to share the information that's on here, which I don't really want to do. But, I mean, they talk about all the major ones. I mean, obviously you got The Shining, Evil Dead 2, Friday the 13th, Elm Street, Halloween, all the sequels from the 80s, even the Psycho sequels. Of course, there's even a segment on just slashers and the big boom of that. So of course they do Maniac, The Burning, My Bloody Valentine. Not Just Before Dawn. That was one of the, when it shows the movie, and then after every movie, when they show the poster, they show like an excerpt from the trailer, which I thought was really cool. When they showed the wall of posters, I can't remember what movie they were talking about, but the poster for Just Before Dawn was right next to it. And to me, that's like the most underrated 80s slasher. Of course, The Fly, Reanimator, Gremlins, Poltergeist, all of them. And even like lesser known ones, like surprisingly, I had never seen, I've heard of Dressed to Kill and knew what it was about, but I never saw it. Heard of Fade to Black, but didn't know what it was about. Never saw Full Moon High. They talked about like the Werewolf of 81 with Werewolf in London, Howling, compared transformation scenes, Wolfen, Full Moon High. Even some horror comedies, like, of course, they did Return of the Living Dead. Even ones like The Burbs. They did the Lovecraft films, of course, Reanimator, From Beyond. It's not a Lovecraft film, but it's from, Brian Usna, Society, which is an awesome movie. I don't have it, but I've seen it. Cronenberg films like Scanner. I mean, they talk about just about everything. They didn't do ones like Curtains or Pieces or Humongous, House on Sorority Row. I mean, even slashers alone, there's a fuck ton of slashers in the 80s. It probably could have been 10 to 12 hours, and there'd still be some missing. But, I mean, we had interviews with, of course, James Rolfe, Angry Video Game Nerd from Cinemassacre. He was really just on the segment on The Shining and Scores. But, Tom Holland, John Carpenter. Surprisingly, no Tom Savini. I was really surprised at that. Brian Usna, Stuart Gordon, Jeffrey Combs. Actors like Keith David, Heather Langenkamp, Barbara Crampton. Jesus. People that have worked within, like, the horror community of some kind. Like, Oh God, I already forgot what he was from. He's one of the main uh, guys being interviewed. I think he's from Fangoria. And then there was another guy from Dead Meat who, when he spoke, he sounded like the narrator of every film. Uh, some of the kid actors, like the kid from Monster Squad, they did talk about Monster Squad. And this is just, I mean, it does suck that there's not going to be, a wide release so that all horror fans could enjoy this. But my favorite documentary, horror-wise, has been Going to Pieces, because I like how they set like the presentation of that. This is my new one. 80s horror was always my favorite decade. Now I think it's the 30s. I really love the 30s monster films and Karloff, Lugosi. Not to say 80s isn't good. It's neck and neck, 30s and 80s. It's still one of the most iconic. It has yet to be topped. I mean, the 2010s has had some masterful horror films, but nothing like the 80s. I mean, the 80s was turning out all different kinds of horror films every week, every month of every year, the whole decade. The 90s was a steep decline. Even the 2000s kind of go up a little bit, but not much. Then the 2010s got much better, but there's even a segment on like practical effects, because this was the shining decade for practical effects. I mean, The Thing, The Fly, The Blob, 3 films that are the holy testaments as to why practical will always be CGI. I don't know if there's a way to download it, if anyone will put it on the internet. I'm sure some people might sell it online because they could probably get a pretty penny for it. If you can find, or if anyone has a friend they could borrow it from, you'd have to borrow it for a while. I mean, 4.5 hours, for me, that's not a long sit. I watch 2 to 3 times that whenever I watch TV anyway, but by the time they got up to like 86, 87, 88, I was thinking of movies from 81, 82, and I was thinking like, oh fuck, did they talk about that one? There's just so much they throw at you, and it's so well paced. It's never boring. They don't. Some films, they don't talk about that much, but I was so impressed. It was well worth the wait. I can't thank my friend enough. One thing that does suck, though, is I don't think he was thinking about it, but when you put your name in for the shipping, all the backers get credited in the end credits, so his name is in here, but mine isn't. I mean, it makes sense, but, he was like, I thought 2 copies, and give me 2 options, but, so it's like, I could have had my name in something. But I was, again, so impressed. I loved this documentary. And at 4.5 hours, with all the information that's in it, I could put this in any time, spend half my day, and still learn a bunch. I mean, and it was good to see that there was a lot that I didn't have. I mean, most of them I have seen, do know about, but there was a chunk that I didn't, and I like that. But yeah, In Search of Darkness, and I'm very happy with this bundle. I mean, I could put that on my fridge, put that on my bag for work. This isn't hung up yet. I went to go get a frame, but they didn't have, a cheap one in this size. I believe it's an 18 by 24, but that is an absolutely gorgeous poster. I love it. But anyway, that is In Search of Darkness. Love it to death. If you guys can find a way to get it or see it, whatever price or whatever effort it takes, well worth it. Definitely. This is a fucking fantastic... Fantastic documentary. Loved it. But anyway, thank you for watching.